This is Progress Culture.
Progress Culture is a weekly happening where master drummer Paul F. Murphy and I share live improvised music and impromptu conversations with people from various fields and expertises about community, value, art, science, freedom, and progress for all. We are excited to share it all with you, so have a listen and see what's going on this week on Progress Culture. Now, let's get into the show. But first, let's hear some music. Hello, everybody. I'm Dominic Fragman here with Paul Murphy from the Spirit of Innovation and Freedom, coming to you for this week's episode of Progress Culture. Thank you for tuning in and welcome. Today we are excited to have one of the show favorites here, Brian Jordan from Jordan R&D. Forgive me.
Hello.
And his wife Donna Jordan, who also is with Jordan R&D, but is also a dancer and involved in the world. So you're living in both, like, rapid simultaneously.
Oh my God, yes we are. What a journey.
How does that play out a lot of times for you in your brain? Like, are you torn? Are you satiated? What do you think?
Oh, I'm satiated.
Oh, yeah?
100%, because I get to work both spheres all the time. Right. So, I mean, I want to say I'm balanced. I'm really not. I'm just, but it's just happy. I'm very happy to be able to share my loves, because for Jordan R&D, I serve as a CFO. So that's handling all the little details and numbers and paperwork. And on my other end, I do dance, which really feeds my soul. So it's like...
And Donna is a rare breed of person that you don't get a lot who actually understand numbers and art at the same time. Right. You know, like me, I understand very little art, but numbers, actually I don't understand anything. But numbers I understand more than art. So, but she actually understands both, which is really interesting.
Thank you, honey.
Yeah, they say that like a lot of times in what I encounter with people in the music world is a lot of times people will come to you and talk to you about the numbers and how there's all this the way that it all links up and the descriptions of it are all numbers. And I think that's what you find, at least in this era, that people really are leaning heavily for a long time now on numbers to describe that which is going on around them. I don't know.
But then I guess now they're describing it with just a O and a 1.
Ones and zeros. That's right. Wow.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Oh, yes.
Very interesting.
So that's a little bit of a change.
That is.
Well, and how about that though too? So like with the higher or more development of this kinds of automation and technology, which we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier with these fields becoming automated. Do you find this as a design that's towards more connectivity?
Oh my God, why would you ask me that? It is so difficult because for me, I love the accessibility. You know, you can do this, you can do your music, your dance, all of your art, and you can reach continents that we couldn't reach before via some type of screen. But as a dance teacher, unfortunately, when I try to explain and break things down, the screen deletes some of that connectivity. I can't feel. As a dancer, you know, it's like, I can like feel how they're feeling. I can touch them and like get them in a better position. And when you have the virtual, you can't do that. So I'm kind of torn because I love this. I would love to have the accessibility, and then we all come together and dance too, or create as well. That's what I would love.
Yeah. I think
Well, the music that we just played, Dominic and myself, and you have heard, I think, a little of it before, but then once again, you were sitting here with you and your husband and Matt, and I was just wondering, as far as dance goes, did you find that it would be danceable?
Sure. Anything is danceable once you connect that. And I did want to bring up a point I was thinking about, because I've seen this Progress Culture show on YouTube, and it's great, and I've seen you all performing, and it's great. However, sitting there live, I can feel it more. It's more intense. Not to take away, I don't want to like be disrespectful, take away the live experience, but it's something about the person connecting, which is the exact same thing in dance, it's just, to me, it's just a little stronger. And the more that you're involved and you get deeper into it, I don't know if it's vibrational, I don't know what it is, but live is always wonderful to me. And but in the interim, we have to do what we have to do. So doing it virtually is fine too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of how I came from a position of thinking, an idealist place of thinking. You know how where that gets you and wreck you sometimes, but or help you out a whole lot. But I used to think about recordings and videos as just subpar representations of what you're doing. So it doesn't offend me that you feel it more here than you do on the video that we make, because I already know that to be true. I think that I used to tell Paul this, like, it would be awesome to be able to not have any recordings available at all. And because you then, if this thing that you're doing, it doesn't really represent the sound, like it doesn't represent the intention of the sound or the spirit. So why do I want to send this out to the world as a representation of what it is that we're doing? Or, and I just find that to be, I struggle with that, with all these, because like you said, it's like you can see these other continents, you can talk to this other person, you can do all these things. So it's not like there's something that, you can't say that it's all not working or it's all negative or something. Like there's definitely something that the technology is doing that is very helpful.
Yes.
And I also think that technology is oftentimes something that gets developed that helps share and show humans how to further develop that thing.
Ooh, yes.
So, like, for instance, brief history of some sort of music. Let's do vocal music, right? Where it starts off and everybody's singing in unison. And that was considered the most stable, strong consonant sound, which is what we want to hear. And then if you follow, it kind of follows the harmonic series, which goes up to an interval called the fifth, an octave, which is the same note, it's just in different registers, right? So then we're singing that together, and at first that was really weird, right? And then fifths, and then add on some other notes, but we didn't really go out of this small range of notes. Well, then along come an instrument that can mechanically go, like, say, for instance, a piano, that can jump from this low note all the way down here up to this high note up here. But people couldn't perceive doing that with their own voice. And now we can do things like that. We can hear giant intervals and stuff. And to sort of not hog the whole thing, do you have any thoughts about whether or not the kinds of technology that we're seeing that provides this greater idea of connectivity, because we always talk about how we're all connected, do you think it could demonstrate that and help us move towards it?
Definitely. Because I think what I said earlier was not the full perspective. What I rely on with virtual type of things, teaching is great. Like when you do the Wicked Chops, someone is there that can take that in and learn without even leaving their home. That is like plus right there. And I've had to explore a little bit more when we're dealing with performing versus teaching versus enjoying. So we take the whole perspective. Everything, I have to like erase a little bit. Everything is not bad about virtual. It is not. It's just time and place, what expectation, what you're trying to do. Because when I'm trying to learn something that I'm not as familiar, I most definitely will go on a Zoom call and get it done. And then I'm happy so that I can share. I don't have to have all of that energetics because I'm looking at technique and what I can break down. So that virtual is like wonderful. I don't have to go to New York like I used to. However, if I want to connect, me and my really good friend Caitlin Kirk, we're like dance buds. We love to get to connect and then go to other places where people are dancing and connect, or something live. So I think you have to look at all of those commonalities, like how is it utilized. But virtual does have a place. Yes, but I feel if you can do them all, if you embrace it, kind of like Eastern and Western medicine, it's not either or, embrace what you embrace. But if you can embrace performance, like at your live events, And then, hey, give them something to look forward to. Like, look at some of our sets, because that's what people do now. They want to like look and make sure that like we're worthy or something. So they'll look at a little online and say, oh, I kind of like these guys. They're kind of new and cool and innovative. Haven't heard that before. And then as you're bringing up the event is coming, then they come to see you live, and it's like, wow, that experience is just going to blow them away.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
So I guess I agree with Donna. Like, it doesn't have to be either or. You know, you have to embrace it all. You know, and she made a really good point too. How you're reaching out to people with the spirit of innovation and freedom. They see you all the time, but then they come here live, and you get a totally different experience. You're like, wow, this really is good stuff. So yeah, I totally agree.
Right on.
No, I agree as well.
I
I thought what you said was very, very, very great.
Thank
no,
you.
I do.
See, all
Because you
this-
went all the way from the beginning all the way to the concert.
See, that's the thing. See, Donna's
coming,
so smart. A lot of it goes
Yeah.
over my head, and I'm like, whoa.
No, that was
you.
excellent.
That's
I
very
to process
kind.
all of that. I'm like, whoa, that's
That's
pretty
very kind. It's all from the heart. If you just go from
Right.
a place from the heart, you know, everything just comes out as it comes out, you know.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just from the heart. And that what's from the heart is what I think all of mankind is trying to
Right.
define and
Yes.
figure out.
Yes.
And they have a little bit of problem if somebody says spiritual. Oh no, I don't believe in spirits. I'm over here, I'm over there. No, I go to the numbers now. And then the numbers do this, and we're figuring it out like that. Whereas we have tried to define this entire universe, while we really need to examine and define and find out who we are and where we came from and what we're doing. And the more interaction we have, the more positive interaction, I think, is where you find that one difference that you brought up and made a great point of, is that whether it be dance or music, because they're very, very similar,
They are.
if the feeling is not there, there's definitely something very lacking. And so the feeling is what I try to explore just in the little bit that I know about music and, say, drumming. And it's just something I continue to do and will continue to do for as long as I'm here. I haven't got the answers yet, but I feel as though that's what everyone needs to start really focusing on, so that we can all become one instead of all of this separation.
Correct. Oh, yes. Speak, brother.
Because it's almost like power and control are manufacturing separation, when really I feel as though that the humans are actually looking to come together.
Right.
Yes.
And I think they have very strong feelings of coming together, whether it be in the United States, Africa, China, India, Hawaii, South Pacific, North Pole, what have you. The people themselves are looking to come together.
Right.
And I want to piggyback off that.
Please.
You mentioned feeling. You know, if you're some type of artist, you do what you do because how you feel. And if I hear another person say, "So you're still dancing?" I'm like, what the crap? Does it have an expiration date? I mean,
Right.
do you stop at like 60 or... No, Martha Graham was still performing in her 60s.
Right.
But the point is, I also will do some form of dance until I go to the next level, because that's how I feel. I go somewhere else. I'm in some other realm, dimension, place, whatever. And that's why I do what I do, because it's such a great feeling. Now, if you don't feel that, maybe you can find somewhere else where you can go somewhere else.
Where you do feel it.
And I'm sorry, babe.
No, go ahead.
Or support the ones who feel like this. Maybe you really enjoy watching or listening when they're doing a set, because that takes you somewhere else. It's somewhere that can help you go somewhere if you open your mind. And I definitely, what Paul was saying about the division, I hate to sound so cliche-ish, we're the human race, but it's the truth. And all this the divisiveness and this and that, it's just not necessary. Because if we come together, it's like strength and numbers. If you can try to be as positive and react as positively as you can, world does get a little hard sometimes, but keeping that same, keep it on, and just being more, do you know the power if we all connected versus everyone has their little, what do you call them, Brian? Rice bowls.
Little rice bowls. Everybody has a little rice bowl.
And I still to this day does not understand that, and I love Asian food, but everyone apparently has their little rice bowl that they want to separate, and they're not coming together. What do you think about that, babe?
Well, I totally agree with that 100%. And we are more alike than we are different from different perspectives. From the perspective of genetics, we're all connected. Everyone on this planet is connected, and we're all related, depending on how far you go back and looking at our DNA. Then you look at it spiritually, we're connected that way too. There's a supreme consciousness that we're all part of. There's an argument that says that is the consciousness here in our brain, or is it somewhere else and it's kind of piped in, kind of like via think about your laptop and how you're connected to the internet. The internet is not in the computer. The internet is out in the ether, and it's piped in through Wi-Fi or a phone line or somewhere else. If you break the computer, you don't have access to it anymore. So I firmly believe, actually I don't believe, I know that our consciousness is not in here. It's a way that our consciousness comes out is through here, but it's somewhere else. And how you connect with that consciousness is like Donna and Paul said, ever so modestly, Paul, what little he knows about drums, which is not true. He knows a lot. But
yes.
However you connect to that consciousness is how you connect. We all connect differently. Dominic, Paul, and Donna, all through art, dance, drumming, guitar. Matt is through science. Me, I'm still learning how to connect. I connect through meditation, but we're all part of that consciousness that's out there, and it's being piped in to us, and we're all part of it.
And if I can say something else, it used to be, back in the day, there was science and there was this connectivity or energy, whatever you want to call it. They were like two split halves. No one believed that they could merge, but
it was
if
pseudoscience, they called it.
A pseudoscience.
Parascience, or what, parasite, whatever you want to call it.
Right, but if you look now on a lot of the articles written, they're beginning to come together. For instance, the scientists who feel very comfortable being scientists, they will strap on all these little electrodes and then measure like all the waves or whatever when someone is meditating. Mm-hmm. And they will see the difference when someone really is open to the cosmos. All of the things will be lighting up versus someone who's not. So the science is supporting what we feel.
Yes, and it would be great if the people at the top would let that come out.
I think they know. They know.
I think they know, yes.
I think, it'd be amazing what we could accomplish if we all work together. I mean, really work together.
Work together,
we could
yes.
there's no limit to it. And I think, what'd you call it?
Morphic resonance.
Morphic resonance. That's the prime example of how we really are connected. And we've talked about it on several shows.
Sure, right.
How, and I'll say it again for people that didn't listen on the other shows, but they've done studies where, like, for example, I'll use the same example I've always used. They had a painting that had faces. I think there were like maybe 20 faces hidden in the painting, and they've sent it to different people all over the world. And everyone could get maybe 7, 8, or 9 faces at the most, but no one could get all 20. But once one person got all of them, everyone else got them all. So it shows they're all connected. I think there was a study done with monkeys, I think, how once one group learned, all the groups figured it out. And the same thing has happened through our human existence. Once, if you look at human existence, there are certain traits that are consistent through all human races all over the earth. Look at, they all created bow and arrows. Every one of them. Like, wait a minute, they all figured out how to make a bow and arrow? I mean, is that...
Right.
What is that?
This concept that you're talking about is something, too, that I was going to try to touch on from the perspective of feeling and expressing your feelings, but also this idea of being connected and open to what you called connected to the cosmos, where you're measuring the brainwaves. And if you're connected in these ways, right, and you're expressing from your truth, which is connected to the truth of the universe and the cosmos, right, let me get ahead of myself. So so you're connected to this. Is your expression of that truth, when you are open and connected to that thing, does it provide knowledge as well? Does it illuminate truth as well? And as a way of maybe even saying, is this proof of that? This idea that individuals or cultures or singular can develop the same things without ever speaking to
Absolutely.
each other. So we are in a condition these days where we're relying on outside sources to provide that information, as if we wouldn't be able to figure it out ourselves.
Right.
Yes.
Right? So this idea that support the people who are doing that, right, is not necessarily just because it's enjoyable, but do you believe, as a person who practices in a often more empirical and scientific way, that there is truth that comes from what you yourself find and express through your heart and that connection? Do you believe that?
Absolutely. Because that very thing you talked about, the fact that you're tapped in, like you said, you got different groups of people that don't even talk, are not connected, but yet they all come to the same conclusion. So there has to be truth that comes from that connection to the supreme being or the supreme consciousness or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, just to me, it's just fascinating. And we talked about, there's another point I was going to make, but I think I slipped my mind. So
I'd be interested to hear all of your perspectives on this. This is something that I have spent a fair amount of time on as I've become more of two things. One is regularly speaking in front of people of different kinds of disciplines and communities, and trying to figure out how to communicate certain concepts without the dogma of certain words.
Right.
So if I want to speak about the divine or the muses or the spirit, that perhaps there's a different way of describing it so that it doesn't trigger anybody's BS meter.
But that's go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
No,
that's difficult because we do have so many preconceived notions and things that we were taught growing up. We were taught a lot of dogma, within the church and what you could and couldn't do.
Not just
and
in
so
the
we're
church.
dealing with a lot of things that we have to learn. Then with the scientists, you have to deal with the things they've learned. When you use things like spiritual and that turns them off, and they're like, oh, you're talking. You know, so you do have to be careful with who you're talking to, but there's no one way to, or language to that everyone's gonna.
Right, but let's just say you're speaking to a room full of skeptics, right? About, let's just say in this case, spirituality, this thing that sounds like such a, people call it the hippie mindset or whatever, where everything is one, or this yogic Buddhist thing that for some reason seems so easy to write off because it has a category in some people's minds. But now if I want to speak about that idea, how would you go about? What disarming language would you use to communicate that idea?
Again, it's like with most people, you have to understand who you're talking to and what language you have to use. With scientists, you have to use science and numbers to back it up.
So how do you say that?
You know, well, as a scientist, I talk in, you know, again, numbers. Like for instance, like when I tell people this world you live in is an illusion. You know, it's hippie talk, but here's how I'll back it up. You know, when you look at an atom, think about a helium atom. Helium atom has a nucleus, a single nucleus, and an electron that rotates around it. You know, if that helium atom were sitting here, represented by my fist, that electron is probably 30 miles away, rotating around. What is that? That's mostly space. So what that tells me is what you're looking at, everything that we see as solid is mostly space. It's an illusion. Everything's an illusion. And what's real is this here. That's what keeps going on. And you have to be able to put it in terms that scientists understand. And for instance, they just recently discovered, University of Maryland, I forget the physicist's name, he discovered what he calls Dinka codes. These are codes that he describes that are similar to your computer codes. Like when you, like a touch screen, you know, your touch screen, there's a code that you touch because it's what do you call it? Static, you know. And there's a code that governs the universe, that governs the fabric of space-time that he discovered. And he likes it. It had to be created by something or someone. It didn't just come into being. It's fascinating. And that's the kind of language I use when I deal with people or science that need concrete evidence. Because I'm one. I need evidence, you know. And go ahead. I know you're going to say something.
And I don't understand what he just said. And I'm a chemist, for goodness sake. But what happened, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's great.
My language is different because mine is all heart-based. For our first, we married 23, 24?
I don't remember.
20-something years. I don't remember. I don't know. I noticed that everything comes from here, and mine came from here. So we had to bridge the gap, and we had to learn to communicate with each other. Like when I'm talking to these people, first of all, are they ready to receive it? Are they open? Some might say they're open, but maybe they're not.
Sure.
But what I do, I just delicately sprinkle it in the DNA, and then let it fall where it falls. Yeah. And, you know, it's just being, like Brian said, knowing who you're speaking to, and also being okay if they don't really accept it, because you know what they're going to do is I am my truth. So they're going to watch me, and they're going to watch what I do. Donna, why are you so happy all the time? Donna, why are you doing? I said, then I can back it up and say, well, when I meditate and ask for abundance, and then when I try to give as much as I can, I get so much back. So a lot of times they're going to watch the person and see how they, like I am the quote unquote spiritual product. Not saying I am not perfect, but they're going to see if I have something they're looking for, then they're going to be like, how is she attaining that? And then I explain, and it's so simple. I just explain this because people will not believe when I was young, like up till college, I was shy. I did not speak like more than 2 words. And then when I went to college, I was like, oh, I found myself. Where was I all these years? And then I just started creating the life I wanted, and I've never looked back. I got the husband of my dreams. Yeah, my kids sometimes of my dreams. Sometimes in my dreams, but you know, I believe you create your destiny, and others, when you're trying to explain to that, they will listen, or at least you've like planted a little seed. You know, you plant your seed, and maybe another 6 months or year, they might hear from outside sources. Maybe they'll hear from Dominic or Paul or Brian. Then that same thing is going to come up again, and they might want more information then. Because that's how it happened for me.
Yeah.
I started amassing a little at a time. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I go about it through music myself. I go about it through music, and just how you were saying, it comes from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I, having met you and Brian at different times, I know that both of you are coming straight from your heart.
I appreciate
I
it.
mean, you can feel it.
That's true.
Or at least I can feel it. And I know one thing. I know my wife, Jere, who's also a poet, she is very spiritually oriented, not in the religious sense. And I know that she would love to meet you, and she has asked to meet you, so hopefully she will soon.
Let's go.
She's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is
Let's
awesome.
go. I would love
And
to.
the other part was that with a question that you asked a while ago, I think before we even started this today, was the interaction between, say, myself and Dominic when we play.
Yes.
And is it improvisation, or is it because you've played together a lot? It's both. We have played together a lot. We continue to play together a lot. But while playing, the interaction and the feelings, they come from the heart and from the mind, because when you're there in that and concentrating that deep, you are of one.
That's right.
And
That's right.
That's a very good point to what you both were talking about earlier. It doesn't have to be mind or heart, but it's both. It has to be both. And you see that with all disciplines. You know, it reminded me many years ago when I played football in college, you know, it's the same thing. You know, our quarterback and our wide receivers, you know, I remember we were doing drills, and the quarterback would just drop back and just throw the ball, and the wide receiver would catch it. And I remember we had a reporter that was watching. He says, "How did you know what route he was going to run?" He said, "Well, we had been playing together so long, we have a connection.
That's
we
right.
know. So during the game, we can just look, and he'll know what route to run, and he'll know where to throw." And it was there every time because they had that connection. It kind of reminds me of like you and Dominic playing together. You just know because you've done it so long. So that goes across all disciplines, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, either a scientist, even a family. You know, I've been with her long enough. I know what she's thinking before she even thinks it sometimes, and sometimes vice versa. You know, and even we get to the point where what happens all the time, what happens with us all the time, we'll come and say, "Hey, did you just call me?" And you're like, "No, but I was just thinking about you," you know. Or we'll call each other, and she's like, "I was just going to call you." It happens all the time. Or if I need something, it's like she's there. And I'm like, we do this because we're so close and we're in tune. But it's both heart and mind.
No, that's great. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that having that too, like in the thing that you're doing, like when we play the music and coming from that space, it's definitely tough to put into words, you know what I mean? But I guess I'm having trouble doing that right now. But I do. But that idea of we are listening so much to each other's truths and what that is showing us. So it's not just the fact that you're doing it together and understanding the tendencies. It's understanding the possibilities.
That's right.
And what I'll challenge you to do, and anyone out there, in your brain, there's a gland called a pineal gland. It looks like a little pine cone. And what it is, and you help me out, Donna, if I'm wrong, it's like an internal Wi-Fi for your brain. It allows you to connect to other people and to the other side, into other dimensions and things like that. But what has happened through the eons and through the many, many thousands of years, we've lost that connection and lost the use of our pineal gland. So, and it's been also proven that certain chemicals suppress your pineal gland, like fluoride. Fluoride's a big thing. Why is fluoride in the water? Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but
No,
fluoride's in your toothpaste.
never.
It's everywhere. Fluorine is actually a poison. But what it does do that most people don't realize, it suppresses that. And when it's like anything else. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like our appendix. It's no longer used for anything because we don't digest raw meat. But in certain animals, it's a useful organ. And so the same thing with our pineal gland. And that's one of the things we've done. We've meditated. We've tried to exercise that and use it to communicate. You know, it's like I said, it's an internal Wi-Fi. So I use it to connect with God, other people. And not that I'm not perfect at it, but we're working it. And that's what I challenge people to do. Use that pineal gland that what we have.
And our higher self.
And our higher self.
Because I have a little checklist. I say, if you don't mind, I'd like to know this. And then I just wait. And then things will just show up, little signs everywhere like, oh, is it a coincidence? No, it is not a coincidence. It is an answer.
Think about, like, right now we're sitting here. There are radio waves. There's FM, AM, HF, VLF, SHF, all kinds of radio frequencies going around us all the time. And, you know, what's the station? WKIK. It's down the street and it's transmitting. I can't hear it, but if I had a radio and tuned in to, was it 101.3, I'd hear it.
102.9.
That's it.
Shout out.
But right, if I had a radio right now and I tuned it in, I could hear it clear as day. They're saying something right now. So same thing with the pineal gland. God, or whatever you want to call it, is talking. He is saying things and telling us things, and there's things being transmitted, but we have to be in tune, be able to tune it and listen. And sometimes we have to be able to drown out all the other, you know, if I bought a radio in and tuned in WKIK, but if Matt's talking or someone's talking, I can't hear it. So I have to silence things so I can really turn up that volume. And you have to do that with yourself as well.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, and when you're talking about all that clutter, that's all the distractions that are everywhere. It's almost like by design. They have so many distractions. You can't hear anymore. It's too much clutter. I'm sorry.
No.
Please.
I know we're getting close to time.
No, we're getting close. Go ahead.
But think about if you had a group of people, or if you had the population that were that in tune and getting things done, what we could accomplish. That'd be scary to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's unfortunate it would be so scary because think about that, man. Think about the ability. What you're talking about is what some might call tuning into the source. And when you tune into the source and you're able to express from the source, this is the things that we're talking about that find real truth, that provide real value, true value. And some of these points that you've talked about too, about connectivity and people wanting to connect. I think we as people, we talked about this earlier, our tendency is to connect, to want to share and support with each other right where we are and do for serving us where we are now. The ability to view what's going on continents away and all that stuff, that's great. But if it's distracting you from the source and now, and being complete and true now, whether it's through dance or inventing interesting things that help people or that are environment friendly, or being able to tap into, this is part, I think, of what I was trying to communicate a little bit ago, which is that, when you tap into that source too, that truth that comes out, it wasn't external necessarily. It doesn't have to be corroborated and validated by this text over here and this this physical existence over here. You provided that truth.
Right.
And that was an illumination of some possibility in the universe. Which is like what I said, we become more familiar with the possibilities. Right. And when you can perceive more possibilities, you can conceive more possibilities. So the ability to generate new knowledge, The numbers, the technology is really all just describing things that are already here,
Right.
that are already going on and already existing. There's a quote that I can't remember the whole thing now, but it basically along the lines of, as long as there are human hearts and minds to perceive and conceive, there will be advancements.
Yes.
In the understanding and to production, or to produce more that is unknown.
That's right.
So it's
Awesome.
I think it's very important. I think it's very important that you all are here, and we are glad that you are, and we are happy to
Glad
be
to
here
be
in
here.
TechPort all the time. And I'm looking forward to doing this again.
Sure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So thank
Always
you.
good conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
It's great.
Well, I'm
we
excited.
need to thank Matt.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
so
Matt. Thank
We have a
you.
lot to
Thank
thank
you.
Matt for. Southern
Yeah.
Maryland Loves You
Yeah.
is about to be tearing it up. So
That's right.
we're all excited about it. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for running the camera, and thanks for being a high quality human. So next time, we'll be here next week. We'll see who's here. We'll see what gets said. Thank you very much for tuning in, and look for the podcasts and the YouTube videos and everything like that on progressculture.org, or you can, I don't know, Google. Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for being with us. We are grateful that you give us your consideration and attention. Please follow and reach out to the Spirit of Innovation and Freedom and TechPort on Facebook and YouTube, or at spiritinnovationfreedom.com and techportsomd.org, and also www.progressculture.org. Let us know what you're thinking and what you want to hear about and how you're feeling. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to see you again next week on Progress Culture. Thank you, much love, and see you soon.